Let's Talk aims to create national conversation on the issues of the day. Your host this evening, senior newsman Gary Moreno.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Let's Talk. And joining us here on the set this evening to discuss the 2012-2013 budget, Madam Premier and Finance Minister Ms. Paula Cox. To her immediate left, we have the Mr. Donald Scott, who is, of course, the Cabinet Secretary. And to my right, Mr. Arnold Manders. Arnold, is it? Anthony Manders, I'm sorry. Mixing him up with his brother, who is perhaps more popularly known than he is, racing ponies and the like. Mr. Manders, who is, of course, the Acting Financial Secretary. Lady, gentlemen, thank you for being here with us. Now, let's talk. Madam Premier, I think one of the things that everybody seems to be concerned about, or much of what we're hearing about this budget, is that it's an election budget. It's a sweetheart budget. The opposition criticized it as going to nowhere, not addressing any of Bermuda's problems. What was the thinking behind drawing up this document?
Well, Gary, firstly, the comments that I've heard were that it's a fair budget and it's a reasonable one. And every time there's a budget that is better than people expect, I remember last year they also called it an election budget. I think what we were looking at was how can we position Bermuda so that we can assist both businesses and residents, and at the same time try and do minimal collateral damage to the economy. Clearly, Bermuda, like the rest of the world, is recovering, but we're certainly still reeling from the economic effects of a recession. So what you want to do is to try and promote circumstances which will aid in a recovery and not lead to a negative GDP growth. So what did we do? We said that there are various sectors of the economy that are still hurting, and they need to be able to lean on the government. So what we did was to continue to provide the economic backstop that we did before with regard to assisting both the retail sector as well as the hotels and restaurants. And we also, in that, we're certainly in terms of, we have about $50 million in terms of payroll tax backstop that carried into from 2011-12 as debt for 2012. We also said that we're going to continue to provide a backstop, and that's an additional amount that we are not going to see in revenues. But we thought that this was essential and necessary so that Bermuda and her businesses could have a crutch. We know that it certainly can continue, but at the same time, while we are not yet in recovery, we saw there was a need to continue to provide support. And that's what we did. And at the same time, as I articulated in December with the pre-budget report, we flagged and signposted the decisions that were on the table for Budget 2012. We also indicated, because you've got to have some element of sustainability, even while you are assisting those who are hurting and you're trying to provide an antidote to the hopelessness. So even while we're doing that, we also have to be pragmatic and look at how we can recoup some of those giveaways that we've given over the years to try and offset some of the continued backstop provisions that we are doing.
I'm glad that you mentioned that withdrawing some of your reeling back in some of the allowances that were made in the previous budget, in the budget for 2010-2011. The criticism has been that perhaps the seniors should not have been the ones to be looked at first. Perhaps the free education, the free tuition at the Bermuda College, taking away the free the riding on the public transportation for free and the like, as opposed to going directly to the seniors. It's been already mentioned that some seniors are land rich, but they're cash poor.
You know, the issue of seniors being land rich and cash poor is front and center of the government's concerns. That's why you've heard my honorable colleague, the minister who speaks for youth, families and sports, the Honorable Minister Glenn Blakeney, indicate that in this budget session we will also be providing an amendment so that the financial assistance criteria and eligibility is modified and relaxed so that those seniors who may not otherwise qualify for financial financial assistance because they have a home, we're seeking to provide a shield in that regard. And clearly in terms of seniors, the idea of making sure that we help and also provide hope to those who are disadvantaged continues. That's why we have the future care. That's also why we provide the continued subsidy at the hospital. And certainly for those who are in terms of land rich and cash poor, remember it is for those properties that seniors have that is above the 50,000 ARV. So it's not across the board. Similarly, with regard to the licensing and in terms of the cars, there is certainly, we still continue to provide the exemption from A, B, C, D. So I think it's also a recognition that we are in testing times, and at the same time you want to make sure that while you do provide the help, you also look at how you can do it in a rational, realistic, and sustainable manner. Because what we have to also look at is making sure that we are living within our means from an affordability prism. And I think that's what this budget seeks to do, to make sure it not only takes care of those who have a need, but also where there is more scope to relax some of the giveaways and to assist those who are hurting. We're seeking to do that. So it's almost like I'm keeping your hand on the till and at the same time moderating it.